Coach Carl Reed, or I don't even know if he's Coach Carl Reed. He's Carl Reed from 247 Sports, kind of set the internet on fire with his suggestion of Coach Prime Deion Sanders getting Jackson State, not just to the FBS level, but to the Big Ten, one of the richest or the second richest conference in the entire country. Is that crazy or does that make a lot of sense? Let's talk about it after the bumper. Stay tuned. What is going on, everybody? What is going on, everybody? My name is JeffLightsyJr. here with the Black Boss channel and Victor Formation. Thank you guys for tuning in. Be sure to hit that thumbs up button, like, share, subscribe, and notification bell because we upload every single day. Now, Coach Carl Reed of 247 Sports, a recruiting site, all the college football stuff you need to know. Go right there. College football, college basketball, all the stuff. 247 Sports. They're one of my favorite. They do the recruiting rankings that we use all the time, etc., etc. Coach Carl Reed and his buddies over there, 247 Sports, Blake Brockmeyer and Colin Kennedy, were doing a conference realignment draft, right? Like, so they were choosing, like, if I was the Big Ten or if I was the SEC or whoever, who would I want to pick up and add to my conference next, right? And it got to Coach Carl Reed, and it got to him, and it was his chance to pick a school that's currently not in those conferences and draft to the Big Ten Conference. And his answer was interesting. His answer was Jackson State, Coach Deion Sanders, and to put them in the Big Ten. Don't listen to me. Let's listen to Coach Carl Reed himself. Let me go ahead and share my screen, and let's take a listen. This was posted on his Twitter yesterday. Let's listen in.
Where are you going to go with this one, Carl?
Now, Blake, I'm not going to lie. I like your picks. I think they're solid and safe picks. When we talk college football, we all have a couple of teams in our league who can compete for a national championship. But what about the teams at the mid-level or the bottom of these leagues that are barely hanging under the Power 5 conference? Some of those teams probably don't belong. I think there's one team led by one guy who can create a lightning rod for college football throughout the country. If he listens to me right now, and
you can listen to him.
All right, Deion Sanders. You don't have to go to Florida State. You don't have to go to TCU. You don't have to go to Georgia Tech. You pick the phone up and you call Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos and Mark Cuban, and you tell them you need the money for a new stadium. You need the money for your 85 scholarships, and you become the most dynamic African-American head coach to ever coach in college football, and you take your HBCU Jackson State program to the Big Ten in Power 5 football. You are the most dynamic guy in the country. And only a guy like Deion Sanders could make something happen. The SWAC is not going to catch up with you. HBCU football is not going to catch up with you. You have a vision like everybody else. You're the greatest of all time. You get those guys to put all of their money behind you. You put all your chips on the table, and you make Jackson State a Power 5 program, and you come with me to the Big Ten. Deion Sanders, Jackson State. I want you. Give this man his 85 scholarship. Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, Mark Cuban, Jay-Z, P. Diddy. You give the man the money to compete with NIL money. You create Amazon Stadium on the campus of Jackson, Mississippi, and you bring Deion to the big time. He doesn't need to go anywhere. Jackson State is my pick to join me in the Big Ten Conference.
Woo! Okay. There's a lot to unpack there, like a whole lot to unpack what Mr. Reed said. And I'm gonna try to let me decompress a little bit, hit a couple woo-saws, because he had me for a while and then he lost me. Listen to me again. He had me for a while, had me upset, had me excited, but then he lost me. And this is why he lost me. He said, the SWAC and HBCU football won't catch up to you. And that's where he lost me. And he lost me there. Why? Even more so than the Big Ten thing. And we're going to talk about why that's not really realistic, but more so than him even suggesting that Jackson State should go to the Big Ten. Because he said that the SWAC and that HBCU football won't catch up to you. But here's the problem with that statement, is that that's disrespect, not just to the SWAC coaches and the SWAC schools, the Gramblings, the Prairie Views, the Southerns, and whatever, even though, Prime and them won the SWAC championship. It ain't like they won the damn thing by 50 points. They won on a last-second interception on a bad pass. It was just a bad pass. They beat Southern in the big-time game before the SWAC championship, and they went and beat Prairie View in the SWAC championship game. But they were this close to losing to Southern. They were this close to losing to Valley. They were pretty close to losing to a lot of teams just last year. And then so he said the SWAC game will catch up to you when every SWAC game was pretty close. Now rosters have changed, and this will be full year 2. But to say the SWAC ain't caught up to you, Jackson State ain't separated that much from the SWAC. They separated on a recruiting trail, maybe with stars and names and notoriety. Yes, I'll give you that. They're the brand. They're the it brand in the SWAC. But as far as on-the-field product, last we saw, Jackson State were barely winning SWAC games. So to say the SWAC can't go catch up to you, Jackson State got to separate themselves on the field. Separating yourself in recruiting and separating yourself on the field are two totally different things. So that was the thing that kind of made me cringe a little bit. The second thing that made me cringe was that he had the nerve to say HBCU football won't catch up to you. Now, I said the last time we saw Jackson State play a SWAC game, they were barely winning. But the last time we saw Jackson State play an HBCU football game, they were getting blown out. Like, they were getting curb stomped. And you guys know I love Prime. You guys know I'm a Jackson State fan. I love Prime. I love JSU. I love everything that they got going on. But the proof is, the facts are, the last time we saw JSU on a football field, they were losing 31-10 to an HBCU team. They weren't losing 31-10 to another FCS team or PWI or FBS or Power 5 or whatever. They were losing 31-10 to an HBCU. So to say that HBCU football won't catch up to you just isn't true, because Jackson State is still catching up to HBCU football. See, Mr. Carl Reed, I get it. He's someone who's started following Jackson State since Coach Prime has been there, like a lot of us, like most people. But Jackson State, and the thing is, let's not even bring up before Prime. Prime's record at JSU, whether we say it's cool or not, if you count the spring season or not, isn't astounding. He went 11-2 last year, but during the spring season, they were just 5-4, and one of those games was a forfeit. So, not 5-4, but they had just above 500 record in the spring season. And once again, that's not to say that the 2022 product won't. That's not to say they won't go out and blow out every SWAC school. I like to say they won't. Hell, I could say they might even lose a SWAC game this year, but that's to be decided come the fall. But we can't pretend like this is Clemson in the ACC, where Clemson just blowing out every team. That Jackson State doesn't have that level of dominance over the SWAC, let alone the rest of HBCU football. I know there's North Carolina A&T fans that are like, hey, if we get on the field with Jackson State, we'll do work. The South Carolina State fans are like, yo, last time we played Jackson State and we're bringing all our guys back, we curb stomped them. So the disrespect of HBCU football is what I didn't like. I get it. Coach Prime has the notoriety. I get it. Jackson State is the it brand in HBCU football. I get it. And all of Jackson State is recruiting at a different level than most schools in that space. All of that is true. But at the end of the day, it's about what the product is on the field. And that's not to say JSU won't change this fall, but we have to see it. And we haven't seen it yet. And so the last piece of product that we got on the field from Jackson State against the SWAC was close competition, close-knit games, down-to-the-wire games, and against HBCU football, i.e. the MEAC, i.e. South Carolina State, they were getting smacked around 31-10. They scored a touchdown in the first quarter and never saw the end zone again. Never saw the end zone again. Let me repeat that. They scored a touchdown in the first quarter and never saw the end zone again. So the whole notion of HBCU football won't catch up and SWAC football won't catch up, that's disrespectful, and that just quite frankly isn't true. That just isn't true. So now that we've debunked that narrative, let's go to the other part of the narrative, which was the Big Ten. And Mr. Carl Reed, obviously, there's been a lot of reaction to what's taking place. He was like, yo, it's always crazy until it's not. And people, specifically some of the people that I follow, the Blue Blood, Scotty, these people, these guys are saying like, yo, you can't jump from the freaking, not just in FCS, not just the SWAC, but the FCS to the Big Ten. To the Big Ten, like the Big Ten just added USC and UCLA. The Big Ten is the second richest conference in the country. The Big Ten's members, when their new TV deal, right now their members get about $60-70 million in the revenue split. By their next TV deal, which will be signed soon with Fox because they do the big noon kickoff and all the Fox stuff, Big Ten schools are going to get $100 million per year. 100 million. Let me repeat that. Big Ten schools, when Fox re-ups their deal with the Big Ten, the Ohio States, the Wisconsins, the Michigans, the Michigan States, the Northwesterns, when they get their new TV deal with Fox Sports, Big Ten schools will get $100 million per year. And they just added USC and UCLA. Now, here's typically how it works. And now here's the thing. Carl Reed and the guys, Coach Reed and the guys over 247 were doing this because they were creating content. This is the time of the year where you have to create some content. It's a little tough. There's no games being played. Recruiting is kind of slowing down. Signing day is gone. Training camp hasn't started. It's a dead period in some parts of the countries. So you got to create some content. And the biggest news in the college football world is the fact that USC and UCLA are changing from the Pac-12 to the Big Ten. So the guys over 247, you know, I mean, folks ain't committing, which the commitments come in July, but they needed some content. And so this is all. So let me preference everything I'm saying is I'm not calling this man an idiot or anything. He was creating content. That's exactly what he did. He created some good content. But the reality is getting checks from Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk, it's just not realistic. It's just not realistic. And just getting checks, simply getting checks from them just doesn't get you into the Big Ten. I'm not saying getting checks from them doesn't help. I'm not saying getting checks from them doesn't get you into the FBS. I'm not saying that at all. It just don't get you into the damn Big Ten. There's FBS schools with high-level football programs, with winning cultures, with that turns net positives as far as profits. They can't get into the Big Ten. Like Oregon, who has Phil Knight. See, he's throwing these hypotheticals where like, yo, you could get Jeff Bezos and you could get Elon Musk and, you know what I'm saying, they could, you know, help out Jackson State just, you know, simple fact that maybe if they want to, or and Diddy and Jay-Z and Zach. These are all hypotheticals. See, Oregon actually has Phil Knight. Like they actually have Phil Knight and they can't get into the Big Ten. Oregon has Phil Knight. He is an alumni. He is an advocate. He donates tons and tons of money, hooks them up with all the jerseys and the concepts and the courts and everything. The stadiums, the track stadium is state of the art. It's the best in the world at Oregon because of Phil Knight, because of Nike. And they can't get into the Big Ten. They can't get into the Big Ten. They can't get into the freaking The Big Ten said, no thanks to Oregon. They said no thanks to Oregon. Washington, who's been to a college football playoff. Washington, who's had winning records, who's had first-round picks, who's put guys in the NFL recently. First-round pick this past year. and have multiple Pro Bowlers recently, like within the last 5 years, last 10 years, first round picks, college football playoffs, winning coaches, Chris Peterson. The Big Ten looked at them and said, no thanks. Like, they can't get into the Big Ten. So Jackson State, it's my team. I'm a fan. This is my team. Jackson State, though. Like, come on, bro. Like, come on, bro. Come on. Now, once again, I get it. You're creating content. And you did your job. You did a good job because people are talking about it. Myself, others. But the Big Ten? How realistic is that? How realistic is that? It's not. It's not. And shout out to the Blue Bloods. Shout out to Zach Blue over there because he pointed this out. And this just a lot of people didn't like the fact that he pointed this out, but shit, it's the truth. Look at this number that he threw out here. They look at these numbers. Because he was like, man, ain't no way in hell Jackson State going to. I mean, he ain't saying it like that, but I'm saying it like that. Ain't no way in hell Jackson State going to get in the Big Ten. It ain't happening. It says the smallest football budget in the Big Ten is Rutgers at $33 million. Let's just round it up at $33 million. ... Which is 15 times more than Jackson State's football budget of $2.1 million in 2021. Please stop the madness. Hey, man. Hey. That man said, please stop the madness. Let's read that one more time because I forgot. I didn't realize it was small. The smallest budget in the Big Ten Conference, football budget that is, in the Big Ten Conference right now is Rutgers, who are terrible, by the way. They have this budget and they're still terrible. Is $33 million. It's 15 times more than Jackson State's at 2.1. Please stop the madness. I mean, that's pretty self-explanatory. That's pretty self-explanatory. Now, this guy, it was doing this thing on Twitter. Shout out to all the people, Miss LaShonda Love, Blue, Scotty, everybody talked about this already because I'm late to the party. I was doing some stuff yesterday. But this garnered some more traction because Coach Prime himself, Deion Sanders himself, actually posted this segment on his Instagram and all 2.5 million of his followers. And it's gotten another 18,000 views over there. Here it is right here. He says, Coach Carl Reed's discussion earlier today. And that got people like the 247 account eyeballs. It got people talking. It got people excited. It got people wondering like, yo, is this a reality? Like, is this what Coach Prime is going for? Now, here's another layer to this whole leaving the SWAC behind, leaving HBCU football behind, all that talk. And why that talk from Mr. Carl Reed, whether he knows it or not, is dangerous. Why that's dangerous? It's dangerous because Coach Prime, everything he's said since he's been at Jackson State and everything he's done, not just said because talk is cheap, but everything he said and everything he's done since he's been at Jackson State, obviously is to help himself and his team, the guys on his team. That's number one, to help the young men in the school that he's at. That's number one. But he's also done everything in his power to help the other schools, to help HBCU football. He's always brought to the forefront two things whenever he's on these big time programs, whether it's ESPN, Fox, big time podcasts, small time podcasts, it don't matter. Two things he always does, Barstool, whatever. He always highlights and where it reps Jackson State, and he always highlights and talks about HBCUs and HBCU football. You can't do that if you leave. And if nobody else comes with you. If you're the singular entity, the singular HBCU, forget the Big Ten. We're not going to talk about that no more because that just, Blue kind of ripped that to shreds. But if you're the singular HBCU entity at the FBS level, how is that propelling everyone else? How does that help Grambling? How does that help Prairie View? How does that help Southern, Bethune-Cookman? You know what I mean? How does that help everybody else? That it doesn't. How does it help Alcorn? How does it help Mississippi Valley? How does it help North Carolina A&T? How does it help South Carolina State? Everything Prime has done to this point has done those things. It's highlighted these coaches at these schools that we don't normally talk about. The Buddy Pughs of the world, the Bubba Bingdows of the world. Everything he's done up until this point has highlighted the Fred McNairs of the world. But if you leave the SWAC, if you just jump ship and move Jackson State, FBS with no one else, it kind of defeats the purpose. It kind of goes against everything you've spoken about up until this point. And that's why I don't think he would. That's what I don't think Jackson State would do it. It doesn't help anyone but JSU. And up until this point, Prime has been about helping everyone. Has he not? I mean, somebody tell me if he hasn't. Up until this point, Prime has been about uplifting all of HBCU football. Even if he loses out on a recruit to FAMU, or even if he loses out on a player to, Valley or whatever. I mean, hell, we've seen multiple Jackson State players transfer to Valley this offseason. Multiple, not just one, multiple. We've seen Coach Dancy at JSU camps. He was at the Deion Sanders camp. He was hanging out at the Vet. And think about, hey, JSU fans, how would y'all like the Vet to no longer be the Vet, but to be Amazon Stadium? Would you like that? Yeah, it's going to come with a hefty price tag. I mean, when they lease, like when stadiums give the naming rights of their stadiums to different people, right? So how Staples Center goes from Staples Center to Crypto Arena and all these different arenas or whatever. I mean, you get a check for that. But then it would be Amazon Stadium and no longer the Vet. I mean, the locals will still call it the Vet, but anybody that talks about it, national media that comes into Jackson to watch a game or whatever, they call it Amazon Stadium. Would you like that? It's just a question to think about. Yeah, it's gonna come with a check, though. Don't get it twisted. It's gonna come with a check. Is that worth the trade-off? That's something only you can answer. The alumni, the locals, and people like that down in Jackson. So, but the whole continuing to uplift our people, all of that, I mean, that kind of goes out the window if you leave everyone else and you jump ship to the FBS. Let's just say the FBS. We ain't gonna say the Big Ten no more, but the FBS. So those are things to think about. So, in conclusion, Mr. Carl Reed, I get it. Jackson State is the hottest name. I've been saying it. I said they're the hottest brand. I said they're the biggest name right now. Right now, I'm talking about right now. And they're the most, they're the sexiest. They're the sexiest team in HBCU football. On paper, glitz, glam, all of that. On the field product, though, they saying the HBCU and the SWAC and stuff ain't gonna catch up. That just ain't true. We got to fight facts with facts. We can't fight facts with feelings or just what I think or because I said so. Because I said so don't work. So to say to JSU, everybody else is can't catch up. Now I said the SWAC. I've said this on my program. The SWAC they're building their teams to beat Jackson State. The SWAC is trying to beat Jackson State. But to say that they trying to catch up, I mean, in a sense, they are in that capacity, but it ain't like Jackson State running away with things. I mean, we'll have to see this fall. But a lot of those games were pretty close. FAMU, they won by 1 point. Southern, they won because the quarterback threw a pick at the end of the game, which was just a bad throw. But they were driving. Valley was a hard physical game to think they won by a touchdown or less. So the gap between JSU and the rest of the SWAC ain't big at all. The last we saw, it ain't that big. And then the gap between JSU and the rest of HBCU football, there is no gap. If it is, South Carolina State is the one in the catbird seat. They're the ones in the driver's seat. Because last we saw, they were beating them 31-10. So we can't just be saying anything. The whole they won't catch up to you. Let's slow our roll. Let's slow our roll. Because recruiting and stars, and I'm not the one to say stars don't matter. Stars matter. But if you get 1 5-star and 1 4-star, you get one of each, there's a chance those guys can bust. Now, I don't think Travis or Kevin or any of those guys are going to bust. But, there is a chance. And like I said, the last we saw, these teams were playing competitive games against JSU. Hell, a lot of people think FAMU's going to beat JSU this year. And last year, they damn sure could have. They lost by 1 freaking point. A lot of people think they're going to beat Jackson State. So, yeah, that's where he kind of lost me. The Big Ten stuff, that was easy to nip in the bud. But the schools ain't going to catch up to you, I just didn't like that. That's dangerous. That's dangerous talk, and it just simply ain't true. So, that's all I got to say on that. What are you guys' thoughts on Jackson State? The Big Ten, I guess. Whatever. Leave your thoughts in the comments. Leave them in the comments. Leave them in the chat. And we might pick up this discussion again later. Once again, my name is JeffLightsyJr. with the Black Boss channel with Victor Formation. You can follow me at JLightsy7 on Twitter and Instagram. That's at JLightsy7 on Twitter and Instagram. Also, subscribe to the YouTube channel, Jeff Lightsy Jr. Subscribe. Hit that thumbs up button on the YouTube channel. Thank you guys for tuning in so much. Hit that thumbs up button on your way out, and we will see you next time. Peace.